Kia ora and welcome to Deep Dives with Will and Reubs.
The show that is making accounting cool again.
I'm Will.
I'm Reubs.
And today we have...
Creative destruction is what I've titled this theme, which I tried to encapsulate the experience or the process of starting a new business. Creative destruction, where you have an idea or you're creating something new out of a set of resources, but at the same time you're breaking down something old. You're breaking down an old way of doing things. You're breaking down an industry, breaking down your competitors' businesses to do things in a better way to deliver more value for newer people.
You're essentially just creating, you're picking an industry and you're going to create disruption.
That's right.
Positive disruption is what we're after.
I guess so. Yeah. So that's in this theme, we're going to try to focus on the first 2 years in business, the kinds of things you need to know with it, if you're just starting out or you're in those early stages. And in this particular episode, we wanted to really talk about focusing on the problem that you're solving in business.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing is in business, you need to solve a problem for someone. So what happens is when you want to create a business, you want to find a problem that exists, identify what the solution is, and then take that solution to market. And that's how you are remunerated in your business. Now, so that's the key thing that we wanted to focus on today, really.
Yeah, before we get into it though, we want to have a quote of the week.
A quote of the week.
I believe you've got one from Abraham Lincoln this time.
I do. So, quote from Abraham Lincoln, it's quite a famous one, is if I had 8 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend 6 sharpening my axe.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've also heard that one. And what does that mean to you?
So obviously this quote is about planning and the value of planning. So I think there's, as we've heard in previous episodes, I spent far too long planning. So there's certainly too much planning you can do, but I think it's really key to when you're about to undertake something in business is to have a plan in place. And I really like to do my planning in Excel. That's just my thing. And I like to look at using Excel to break down no matter what we're trying to tackle. I want to look at putting some sort of structure in place in terms of what that process is and how we're going to approach the problem and how we're going to solve it. So I think there's a lot of value in planning rather than just running out and just trying a bunch of things. And what planning does is it gives you the ability to put a plan in place. You can execute that plan. That's probably never going to work out, especially in your first few attempts. But then you can go back and iterate a plan, and it's just sort of this process you have of putting a plan in place, giving it a go, finding what doesn't work, and improve the plan. And it's just, you're just iterating essentially.
I guess that's what Abraham Lincoln's relating to there. Don't just run in there with no plan at all. Think about the task ahead and invest the time necessary to start and to finish.
That's right. And although we have used this quote, I'd challenge Abraham Lincoln. If he's got 8 hours to chop down a tree, spend 6 sharpening the axe, I'd probably look at flipping that a little bit. I'd probably look at 2 hours of planning and the rest on execution.
Totally.
But the principle itself is quite cool, which is, make sure that you are spending that time planning.
Yeah.
So pretty cool quote. Cheers, Abraham.
Yeah, excellent. All right, so kick us back off into understanding the problem that you're trying to solve and how important that is when you're first starting out. Because a lot of people out there, there's a lot of people with a lot of business ideas. You hear a lot, every house party you've ever been to, there's somebody who will come up to me and tell me about their amazing business idea. And something I often say is that ideas are cheap, and execution that's expensive.
Yes.
So how do I take something? How do I go from idea to knowing if something is worth continuing or pursuing further?
Great question. So with solving a problem, something that I often say as well is the harder problem you solve, the more value there is in that solution.
Totally.
Value being what people will pay you for it.
Yep.
And what's really interesting as well is the harder problem you solve, the less competition there is. So let's say, for example, we take the problem of I am in the city and I want to eat some food.
And it's 1 a.m. and I've just come out of a bar.
Right. You're going down that path?
Yeah, I'm going down that path.
Sure, okay. Yeah. So I was saying if it was the middle of the day, let's say, it's an easy problem to solve. So you don't get remunerated really, really highly for just let's just say your classic cafe. It's quite hard to make a lot of money just running a single cafe
because it's a highly competitive market. The problem you're solving is caffeinating people or feeding people in a convenient and comfortable setting, and that's quite an easy problem to solve.
Correct. In contrast, let's just look at a more difficult problem to solve.
Landing a rocket.
Yeah. That's a very, very hard problem to solve, so you get well remunerated for that.
If you can fire a rocket into space and then turn it back around and land it back down and reuse it again, that's a complex problem. There's not a lot of people who are trying to solve that, and the one person that is being paid very well.
That's right, exactly. That's even a better scenario, better example that I was going to provide. I was going to say, like let's take a lawyer, for example. What lawyers are doing is, let's say you're an intellectual property lawyer and you're providing advice on intellectual property. That's quite a hard problem to solve because you need a very refined set of skills to provide that advice. So you get paid a little bit more for providing that sort of advice than you do for, let's just say, making a sandwich at Subway.
Absolutely.
Harder problem to solve, you get remunerated better for that.
And there's fewer people doing it. So if you are the best, perhaps you deal in patents for new products, you need to understand law, obviously, and then intellectual property law in the countries that you're looking after, because you may have other people overseas you're dealing with. But then also understand enough about product design and engineering and your customers in order to really get how to deliver that service.
Totally. So when you're looking at starting a business and looking at what problem you solve, be aware of how easy that problem is to solve. Because let's say, for example, everyone's got an idea for an app, right? You're talking about going to a house party and everyone's got an idea for an app, and that's where I think, when you look out at the apps ecosystem, a lot of people that have built apps have solved an easy problem. And when you solve an easy problem, what you do is you don't require a lot of investment into that app, but you end up finding yourself in a very, very saturated market. Where if you solve a really hard problem, you'll find that there's not a lot of competition and people are willing to pay a lot of money for that solution. And let's just look at what we've done, for example. Is the app or the software that we have built, it's solved a very, very difficult problem, which is providing visibility into work in progress movements. We're talking about staff performance around productivity, average hourly rates, ROI, and write-off percentages down at that staff member level. In order to solve
stuff people have never been able to measure correctly before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and in order to solve that problem, it required a very, very complicated set of algorithms. And I spent, with Ruben's help, I spent 9 months basically full time hammering away at this algorithm, not even sure whether it was possible to solve this algorithm. But by the time we'd solved it and we take the product to market, there's no competition. No one's able to do what we're doing. And what that does is when we go sit down with business owners in the professional service space and we show them the sort of reports and analytics we can provide on their business, they're blown away because they've never seen that before. So what we did is we've solved a very, very difficult problem. We've solved it better than anyone else. Well, no one else has been able to solve it. But what that does is we're remunerated really well. We can charge a good price for our software because it's a hard problem to solve. In contrast to, there's some other apps out there that do reporting, but they do it very surface level. They don't write any deep algorithms on the data, and then you can find that they're floating around there for $19 a month. Where at a minimum we're charging $199 for our subscription for a small business. So that's I think what that comes down to is we've solved a really hard problem, and we've found ourselves in a market with not a lot of or no competition at the moment, which I know will change. But I think that was just an important point to reiterate, was the harder the problem is to solve, the less competition there is, and the more you're going to get remunerated for it. So think about that when you're trying to build a business.
Totally. I mean, you hear a lot of people saying identify a niche. A really common way to get started in an industry is if you already work in that industry, perhaps you're already working a 9-to-5 job for somebody else. Perhaps you're an architect, an engineer, an accountant, bookkeeper, and you're working for someone else, and you say, I rate my skills and I'm going to back myself to deliver this for my own customers and find my own customers. How can I differentiate my service so that I can make sure I'm solving a problem that's worth solving and that I can charge more money for?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And so when you're looking at solving the problem, the good way, there's a lot of people out there that go, right, I don't want to work for the man for the rest of my life. I am ambitious. I want to go out and I want to start my own business and build a company. Now, a lot of people in that situation go, cool, well, I want to do this, but I have no idea what business I want to start. And what I genuinely say is just look around and try find a problem you have in your life, or try find a problem. And so you might be working in a job right now, and you could look at everything that's happening in your job right now and find something that annoys you, or find something that annoys someone else that you work with. Because if you can find that, there's probably that's a problem, and then there's probably a solution to that problem. So there's a solution to every problem, man. There's a solution to every problem. It just depends on how much time and effort you're willing to throw at that solution. So that's where, let's say, for example, you're working in the, I'm on the spot here, but I'm going to try to think of an example. Let's say I'm working in the brewing industry, right?
Okay, yeah.
And at the once I've done all my brewing, I have a whole lot of out of the vat, there's a whole lot of waste product, right? Yeah. So what you've done is you've got this, and then at the moment we don't know what to do with that. So if you can figure out what we can do with that waste product, and we might be able to take that and turn it into something that you could then put on the vegetable gardens or something along those lines. This is just an abstract example. But what you've done is you've taken a problem and you've created a solution for that. And what you're doing is you're solving a problem for the brewers, because you're getting rid of this product that they're currently paying money to dispose of. You're taking it for free from them. Or you could even be charging to get rid of that, and then you found a way, something to do with that byproduct, which is selling it to market gardeners because it's high in nitrogen and nutrients. Abstract example, I get that, but that's the point is you're just looking around what's happening in your world, what's happening in your life or in your business or in the company you work for. What problems are there? What is pissing people off? So it pisses someone off, there's a chance that there's thousands or hundreds of thousands of people that are also getting pissed off by this problem. Go out and solve it, and solve it better than anyone else.
Totally. There's no shortage of problems and business ideas, but what about people that want to start in their own background, take their own skills or something from an industry they're already in and go out on their own? How can they solve a problem? Where would they look to differentiate themselves?
That's a great question, because what you've done just now is you've identified two different sorts of businesses. One is, even though I really don't like the word entrepreneur, one's an entrepreneurial type of, I'm going to go and invent something. I'm going to invent a solution to a problem. So that's one side of a business, and the other one is, hey, I have a set of skills. I am a lawyer, I am an accountant, I am an architect, I'm an engineer, or I am a plumber, I'm a Sparky, right? I want to go out on my own. So those are two very different things, but in both situations you're solving a problem. Let's say you're an architect and you're currently working for an architecture practice. Yes. You're solving the problem for people, because to build a house you need to have some plans drawn up, right? So you're solving that problem, but what you're doing is you're rather than solving the problem for so when your company is contracted in to solve the problem, you're the one solving that problem. You're just going out on your own and doing that, and you're finding your own work. So what you're doing is you're moving away from being an employee into being a business owner, which comes with a whole new set of challenges, but obviously that comes with a whole set of rewards.
Exactly. So one of the way you can differentiate yourself if you're in that boat would be to take a look at the kinds of skills, the kinds of clients you've worked for, the kinds of industries you've worked in perhaps. Look at where your skill set lies and where you can see an opportunity or maybe a growth market. Taking an architecture example, you could, I don't know too much about architecture aside from everything we advise architects. However, perhaps you could look at a type of architecture that is not currently being done in a way that you think it could be done. Or maybe it's a type of architecture client that is not currently having their needs met by the existing range of architects or your current employer maybe. And you can say, I think I could look after early childhood centres better than anyone else. I could design one and have one built to meet the needs of children playing in a playground, for example, and that might be your thing, and that's a really difficult problem to solve. You can become the master of playground design. And that's something people are willing to pay for.
Absolutely, yeah. You're establishing yourself in the market as the market leader in that area, and what I also find is is interesting is when you're trying to go out and start a business and solve a problem, is that if you can take two skill sets that don't usually join together, you create some serious opportunity, man.
Absolutely. Give me an example.
I'll use myself as an example here. I'm an accountant and I've got a strong background in sales. So there's not many accountants that are in sales, to have, so you're an accountant as well. And I think, being able to mix those skill sets, it gave me a unique opportunity to go out and sell accounting software and then implement it. And then what I did is I went in through another skill set on top of that, is I learned to write code. So now I'm an accountant that can sell shit and I can write really good software. So I'm developing software. But I can develop a financial software because I understand the accounting applications. And then once I've built it, I know how to build a sales engine to go out and sell it as well. So those are just 3 skill sets I've put together to build the business that we're in right now.
Great. So from an architecture perspective, you may start developing skills around playground, understanding how children play, or how they like to play, or how they should be playing, or how their brains develop something that's going to put a flavour, a bit of a spin on the traditional service that other people would deliver. And the better you can spin it, the more cutting edge it is, the more fringe of society or fringe of science it is, the more people are going to pay money for it. You'll be finding people will be flying you to conferences in Norway to talk about playground, the cutting edge of playground plastics.
That's right, exactly. And it's also another way to look at it is it's not just bringing skill sets together, but it's taking a skill set and adding a passion into it. So really let's say, for example, we'll take your architecture example is with the playgrounds. As you go, right, well, I've got a skill set in playgrounds. I've got a skill set in architecture. But then what happens is I cruise around and I see these dodgy looking, these they're not inspiring playgrounds. And I go, no. I want to build playgrounds that people will just they travel to go play on these playgrounds.
Totally.
And that's what you're doing is you're taking a skill set and you're adding a passion into it, and then you go down a channel. So it's not hard, or not saying it's hard. Any business is hard, but being able to put 2 disciplines together, being one a skill set or another skill set, or a skill set and a passion. When you start mixing things like that, that's where you find your niche, and that's where you actually start becoming a market leader in what you're doing.
That's a really good point, man. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's the hedgehog principle, isn't it? Isn't that where you've got, I can't remember who said it, it's from good to great. Remember, I struggle to remember who wrote that book.
Jim Collins or something?
Collins,
yes,
Jim Collins, I think it is. Yeah, Good to Great. He wrote a book called Good to Great. Look it up. It's really good. It's about going from good to great.
Maybe that could be a quote we have in the next couple of weeks.
We'll look it up. But basically he says, if you want to make money doing anything, you need to have obviously a technical proficiency in something. So that needs to intersect. He's drawing a Venn diagram where you've got one circle, and that's technical proficiency, the ability to do something. And then he's got another one that intersects that, and that's passion, something you care about. And then the third one is remuneration. It needs to be something people are willing to pay you for. So at the intersection of those 3 things, there's a very small little gap, and that is where you find something you're passionate about, that you're good at, and that people are willing to pay you for. And that's like the golden part. That's your business right there, where whatever is in that box.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's spot on. Well, good memory on that. You must have read that book about 3-4 years ago.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's exactly what we're saying is being able to joining a skill with a passion, and then finding a problem to solve. If you can think about, hopefully, if you're listening to this, you can sort of start thinking about you and your life and those 3 things, and see what sort of intersection you find.
Another thing, I get a lot of good advice from Will McTavish, but there's 2 things that just jump to mind about that is make sure that you're solving a problem for people that have money. So if you're solving a problem for people that are not willing to remunerate you for it, then it's all very well that you're solving that problem, and you may be solving it very, very well. But the people there's no one out there is going to reimburse you for it. So you need to make sure if that's something, if you want to make this your business, you need to live, right? And you need to think about what goals you have, how big your business doesn't have to be 50 staff. You got to think about what you want to do and what kind of life you want to live, and what that looks like to you. A good example is, if you are a 25-year-old, architect maybe, or perhaps I'm a fashion. I don't know. Maybe I'm into makeup. Okay, and I want to be traveling in the next few years, and I want to have a family, maybe that sort of thing. Do I want to be on the road every day selling makeup, to wholesalers, for example. Maybe not, but I could build a business that allowed me to pursue my passion and something I'm good at and something that people remunerate me for that I could do while I travel, perhaps. So you got to think about what you want to do. Another example you give is around a cafe owner. If you want to run a cafe, you need to be prepared to be working in that cafe. So if your objective is to be moving overseas in the next 3 years, you're not going to do that if you start a cafe today. You're not going to be. You're still going to be running that cafe in 3 years because running a cafe is difficult. Yeah, and anything in hospitality is difficult. So if your objective is travel, or maybe you got to look at what's important to you, I suppose.
Absolutely, and just to come back to your point where it's about making money from people that have money. The thing that actually really just one of those light bulb moments was I was watching. I think many of us have seen the Breaking Bad series, and then they had Better Call Saul. Remember that? It was the sort of the spin-off show with the lawyer.
He was the lawyer.
Yeah, and he decided that he was going to go into elder law.
Okay.
So he's going to start doing trusts and wills and things for the elderly.
Yes.
And then he did some work, and then one of the old ladies, she opened up her purse and she starts counting out these notes for him. It was like a $95 bill, and she's pulling out some coins and things.
Yes.
And I'm like, that highlights it perfectly. He's gone, yes, he can solve the problem. There's a big problem, right? The problem is that a lot of elderly people don't have a will. And then there's a lot of people. So there's a market for it. There's a need. It's a problem. But
he can solve it.
He can solve it, and he's doing a great job. The problem is the people don't have any money to pay him. So that's something else to really keep in mind as well, as it's a lot easier to make money from people that have money. And let's look at Donald Trump as a great example here. I read his book, The Art of the Deal. Yeah, I read that, and as everyone knows, he inherited, or he got given a loan from his father for $1 million or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Now his dad did a really good job at building affordable accommodation for people that weren't wealthy.
Right.
So they basically had large apartment blocks, and then Donald Trump's job when he was working for his father was to go around and collect rent. And half the time people didn't have rent, or they couldn't pay, or they were hiding and
have an excuse.
It was an excuse, exactly. So what his father was doing is he was solving a problem, but he was solving for a problem for people that didn't have money, and it was a challenging way to make money. But nevertheless, he did make a good sum of money. Donald Trump looked at what his dad did, and he thought, I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do it for wealthy people. His target market was the 40-year-old Ferrari driving Italian guy.
Yeah.
He was building accommodation for them. So what he did is he built this series of hotels and apartments and accommodation for very, very wealthy people. And sure enough, that's how he moved from making, his dad was making, let's say $10 million.
Yeah.
He moved into the billions because he decided that he's going to solve a problem for very wealthy people. So if you're going to solve it depends on how much money you want to solve and where your passion lies as well. But if you want to make a lot of money, it's a good idea to look at your customers and how much money or how much disposable income they have to buy your solution.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we've covered quite a bit there.
Yeah, there's a bit. Yeah, there's definitely a bit.
But the crux of that was when you're first starting out, if you're how to find an idea. We gave people some idea about where to look for ideas if you're just sick of working with a man and you want to start something new and exciting in the world.
Yeah, we talked a couple of options there. One is joining multiple skill sets, which gives you a unique set of skills that you can take to market. The other one is taking an existing skill set and joining it with a burning passion that you have, and then making that your drive. So those are two options there.
Yeah, and at the intersection of those two things, you want to find some way to be remunerated for that.
Yeah, and you want to be good at it. You want to make sure that you're good at it.
Totally.
Which is the hedgehog effect, was it?
Yes, the hedgehog principle.
The hedgehog principle.
All right, so we'll wrap that up there. In the next month's episode, we'll be moving on to what to do once you've decided, or how to qualify an idea, or once you've found that golden triangle in the middle of those three things, what do you do about it?
Yeah, that's right, absolutely. So look forward to catching up with you guys next week.
We'll see you there.